What
Hello.
is. Hey, how's it going, Ryan? We are back with a new audio digest where we
Audio
take your
Digest.
questions and we talk very smoothly back to you.
You know what's terrible? I always
That
forget the name of our podcast.
Oh, that is terrible.
that is terrible.
I'm like, audio hi-fi, audio. I know it has two Y's, and then it
Uh,
comes to me, but it takes a second. I always forget.
Well, and it's called digest because we're doing DIY for like your DIY work, and then jest. So kind of like a Reader's Digest, or I mean, there's so many different digests you can digest, whatever. But audio digest, and we go over your audio thoughts and feelings. And today we're going to go over a really good one. We're all DIYers, and the show's audio DIY Jess, right? And today we're going to tell you when you shouldn't build your own speakers or when you should not DIY, which almost seems like we shouldn't do this.
Self-defeating.
Hey, Manny Makes Music is here. Hello, Manny. Manny has been awesome. He's been telling us about the speakers he's building, and he says right now he's tuning in as he's building his speakers. So that's awesome.
Oh
Keep
man,
us.
Cool.
that's like he's hardcore.
I know. Actually, this is like the perfect time to do it because if you were building your own speakers and you ran into an issue, you could ask the question.
That's right. You should
Yep.
always build speakers when watching to Audio Digest.
That's right. So this idea came up to us because we think that there are times where building your own speakers is maybe not the thing to do, even though we all like to build your own speakers. And Ryan, I am curious. Oh, and TVOR, the True Voice of Reason, is here as well. It's good to see you again, True Voice of Reason.
Hello.
I'm wondering what would be a situation where you would tell someone or you yourself wouldn't build a speaker?
Who you asking?
You, I said Ryan.
Oh, I thought you did, but I wasn't sure. Lots of reasons, lots of times. There's lots of times. We got a whole hour. We're gonna talk about them all.
Well, name
I'll
one
I'll,
of
I'll,
them.
I'll throw one out. I'll throw one out.
Yes, please.
Um, when you are first starting out and you don't have the tools. Okay, so you might not have the
Oh,
tools. So you might still like
that's a
you
good
might
one.
still do a DIY kit, or you might buy a speaker that matches what you're looking for, and you might kind of like um, measure it and tweak it and stuff like that. You might like if you're truly into DIY, but that might be a time when you're like, I live in a condo, I'm gonna do it this way instead.
Yeah.
You know what, though? I do want to say this. If you're going to do that, and by the way, even if you're going to build a kit, you should still at least have a measurement microphone, at the very least.
Yeah,
Now,
Agree.
it can be a cheap one, and honestly, you could probably get away with just using your phone if you really needed to, because all we're really trying to do is keep track of phasing most of the time. Although the crossover work is also you want to make sure to. I just did a video on 5 biggest DIY mistakes, and one of them is not measuring after you built the speaker.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a big one. You faulty crossover parts or just the crossover assembly's wrong. If you're just using your ears and something sounds weird, is it the speaker designer's choice acoustically, how he voiced it, or are you hearing a really bad crossover part or something wired up out of phase, a bad
And
resistor?
and I know Ryan and I used to be really big on forums, so I know that he's seen this a lot, and I know I have as well. At least I'm making the assumption he has. So I guess I should say that I've seen a lot of times, and actually, the Overnight Sensations is probably the one where I see it the most, or saw it the most when I was back on the forums. People putting their tweeter polarity incorrectly
yeah,
and saying something doesn't sound right.
especially if it's a kit that calls for it backwards, they often miss it.
Yep,
Yeah.
Yeah.
because and that's one of them that you're supposed to flip the polarity. So
Yeah, I have I'll admit some mistake here. I'm not quite perfect. First of all, I think impulse responses are carpenter, and he's right. I was wrong. You just buy more tools, okay? So that's the first thing. But with the tweeter polarity thing, I have designed a speaker, put it together, like even prototyping or something, and I'll have like called for a reverse polarity. I'll put it together and I'll be sitting there listening like, You know,
Something's wrong. Yeah.
something's wrong, and I have put the tweeter polarity wrong, and I'm the guy who like figured it out. So
I
it's
actually,
easy to do.
I'm not going to mention the guy's name. Placed second in the speaker design competition, and they said your polarity's messed up. And sure enough, he had one of his, it was an MTM, and one of his mids was flipped, and he still placed second. And, yeah.
That's
judging?
weird. That's weird.
I know it is weird. So, really, but if I told you who it was, you guys would be like, "No way, he did that," because it's a common mistake. It's
Yeah.
very easy to make. Very easy to make. When you do play like a sine wave through it, if they're reversed from each other, you'll hear it immediately because you'll hear a bunch of cancellation, and you'll be like, "That's not right." But if they're reversed on both of them, you got to, and that's an issue. So I would tell you, and you can pick up like a cheap one. Like I think Dayton Audio sells one from Parts Express. You can use our links down the description. It does give us a little bit of an affiliate commission if you get one. But it's like $15 or $20. It plugs into your phone.
Yeah.
So you could use something cheap like that. It doesn't have to be an expensive one.
You
But I
just
would
want to
at least
you
get
just want to
that.
verify. Just try to verify with what's published by the designer. That's really all you're trying to do.
Yeah. DATS is another
wonky.
thing that would be nice to have, but not
A
something
little
you
more
necessarily-
expensive.
Yeah, if you're just getting in, I would just start with a cheap measurement microphone,
The
especially if it's not
microphone's more
something.
important.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree.
Back to Ryan's point, that was what I was going to start with. Also, I think that may have actually been our first episode, if I'm not mistaken. Was what
Oh,
tools?
tools?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I really totally agree. I try to push people into DIY all the time. I have a really bad habit of that, but I agree, especially if you're just eyeing one particular kit or one build, and you're going to have to set out and buy all these tools. That's just the first step in so many things you're going to have to go out and buy. Building speakers on a weekly basis, I still have to go and stop by the hardware store a couple times for each build. There's always something that I'm missing. And so you're looking at a pretty big, even if you go with all of the cheapest tools possible, you go with the store brand tools, you're going to be spending a few $100s before you even get started cutting any wood. So
Well, and that's why like some kits that come with pre-cut wood and stuff is a good place to start if you need to do that.
yeah.
I did see this comment, Evan. I'll talk about that in a minute. But before we go there, let's talk a little bit more about what we're talking about. Brian Burrow said, I did it last year at the speaker design competition in Dayton. Everyone told me about a time that Jeff Bagby did it. Which I did not know about that, but it doesn't surprise me. It is something
It
very
happens to
easy
everyone.
to do. It does.
Everyone.
These big, humongous Gorilla home theater speakers I built, I wanted to be cool. And when I prototyped, I put them up on my table saw outside. And lifting them up there is a guaranteed back injury. When I got them all assembled and crossovers and things done, I set them back up there, shot a measurement, and I was out of phase at the crossover point. Of course, I took them back down, took them apart, and compression driver didn't just overlooked it. And no, the whole time you're consciously thinking, don't do this because it's going to be such a pain. And you still do it. So it happens.
And the good thing is, if it's a two-way, you can just flip one of them.
Yeah.
Whichever one's easier to take out.
Yeah.
All right. I'll mention one that I think most of the time is not worth DIYing. If you're trying to buy really, really inexpensive speakers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think maybe we could lump in Bluetooth speakers and things of that sort in there, or if we can cover that
It
separately.
depends on how much you're going to spend on the Bluetooth, because some Bluetooth speakers now are $1,500+.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. It's so hard to beat the economies of scale that these big commercial companies have. They're buying drivers for 50 cents a piece that you're going to buy online for 10, 20, 30 bucks. So yeah.
It's harder to build cheaper when you go cheap. It's easier to build cheaper when you go really, 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 really expensive, right?
Yeah.
If you know what you're doing, obviously. But yeah, if you're on a really small budget, True Voice of Reason had a great point here. I like this point. For those on a seriously small budget, shop yard sales, church sales, have historical society that I bought B&D corded drills for $2 each. I have told this before on there, but I'll say it again. One time I was looking for definitive technology speakers. I always wanted definitive technology speakers. In fact, that's the way I got into DIYing speakers. My friend had a definitive technology surround sound his dad did, and I heard it. And I heard the bass, and I was just like enthralled. I was like, "This is awesome." We were watching like Fast and the Furious on DVD. This is awesome, and so we were super stoked about it. And so I always wanted some. And so I ended up finding some that the guy was selling them. They had a 15-inch powered subwoofer in the side, and he was selling the center channel speaker with an 8-inch powered subwoofer. And he sold them all for like $300 total, which was
Yeah.
insanely priced. And so I went out in a snowstorm and picked them up. I was like, I'm going out there and get these. And I did because I didn't want to miss them. And so, you know, there are some great used market stuff. I think I found those on Facebook Marketplace. But yeah, especially if you know what you're looking for, you can sometimes find a good deal. And I'm going to say one more quick story about that because I think this is a good point that he's making. One time I was at a yard sale and I saw some stuff and I saw a cheap little boombox, nothing good. And I was like, "Hey, do you have any other speakers that you might want to sell?" And the guy goes, "Actually," and he brought me to an original set of Wharfdale speakers where they had the sand in the back, like built into the rear chamber. They were beautiful. Came with the original documentation and even a letter from the original owner who bought them brand new in Japan and brought them back from the war, or where he was stationed. It may not have been a war, but where he was stationed at, and got them for $20. So you know, definitely. Wow. Take a look at those types of things. Like they're out there, and don't be afraid to ask.
Yeah. Yeah. Someone says I've often thought about using Emotiva or ELAC bookshelves for Atmos. Yeah. I mean, if you're going to do something like cheap Atmos speakers, a cheap bookshelf speaker is most likely going to get the job done for stuff like Atmos, or like if you're in an 11 channel surround system, like they're going to get such little use that something like that's probably going to get the job done versus DIYing something, you know.
I disagree.
Okay, tell me why.
Because I think if you're going to build an Atmos speaker, first of all, you get a concentric coaxial driver. You can get one for. There's going to be more hitting the market. I'm pretty sure later this year or next year, and because the whole point with Atmos is you want to have a wide, even dispersion amongst the most amount of seats, and whenever you're going with a bookshelf speaker, you know, when you go further away from the bookshelf speaker, up and down, you have issues. So you definitely have to make sure that you angle it properly. So, I mean, maybe if he angles it, but you're still only going to get really, you know,
so much coverage. Yeah.
You're going to get so much coverage. I would rather have a concentric coaxial if I could.
But that's kind of the reason to DIY is because we can so easily customize for our space, for our needs, you know. Like how many manufacturers out there have dedicated Atmos speakers that like make sense for a theater room? I mean, they're out there, but you don't just walk into Best Buy and buy a pair off the shelf for $100, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, most of them are very compromised. The Atmos speakers that I've seen are very compromised.
Yeah, and they might look good, but I mean, they're maybe not the best thing.
Tin Man says working on the Hi-Vi Swans 3.1, a lovely bookshelf speaker. And I don't know when you purchased these, Mr. Tin Man, but I've heard that, and this is just hearsay, but I've heard that they did the Perfectionist mod. They've changed the crossover in the kit to be the Perfectionist, which is going to be the more neutral top end. That could be misinformation. Don't take what I'm saying with a grain of salt, but hopefully he got that mod included. But even if not, I think you're really going to like them. I hope you do anyway.
And if not, I'm going to be coming out with an active DSP crossover for it. So that will be coming out soon. So people have asked me like why I am working on my guest bedroom. So exciting. So exciting. But it's going to turn into also where I start recording a lot of my videos, I think. And so I'm trying to finish that up before I can do some of these videos. But yeah, let's just answer Evan's question. Evan has said the voxel will be paired. He's asking me about a He said, "Hey Toyd, I recently purchased some voxel plans. Thoughts on the Nobe Sound NS03G as the amp? I did look that up. I don't have any experience with Knob Sound or that particular amplifier. Do you guys?"
Never heard of it.
No, I'm familiar with the brand. I think they're a well-respected brand, but I don't know anything about the model.
Yeah, I have an issue with most of these subwoofer amplifiers that I've tried. I'm looking at this one, and this one does not have any type of way to adjust any of your basic stuff, which concerns me as far as like crossover point. There's no crossover point adjustment. There's no slope or filter. What I would consider doing if you have a little bit more money is go into a Arylic's website. They are ARYLI. No, yeah, is that right? Arylic?
ARYLIC.
Yeah, ARYLIC. And they have some DIY boards. I don't know how much their 2.1 board is, but I'm about ready to find out. So it's $89. So it's a little bit more expensive than what you're looking at. But if you power this with a good power supply, you can get their app, and it's a DSP app. And so you can adjust all kinds of things, such as the crossover point digitally, and then save it onto the board. And for me, that's what I would do. Even though it's a little bit more expensive, it would give you a lot more options, in my opinion, and it would sound better in the end.
Yeah, that Arylic board's pretty solid. I've used it, so
definitely get. And he says he's going to pair it with the passive aggressive kit from Parts Express, which is awesome. But yeah, definitely I would do that. You do, I think, have to buy the software still, but the software is pretty cheap. I think it's like $10 or something. It's pretty inexpensive, and it's for the lifetime of your computer. So if you ever want to change that or move that crossover or that board to something else or a different project, you can do that. It's not going to matter. So for me, I would do that.
Can I throw out another? Oh, sorry. I thought you were done.
Yeah. One last thing. I am an affiliate with Arylic, so if you want to use my link, you can, but you don't have to.
Go for it, Ryan.
I'm gonna throw out another reason to not DIY.
Yeah, I'd like to hear it.
If you don't plan on keeping the speakers for a long time,
great point.
If you're gonna sell them, like
right. You mean give them away?
Yeah, the drivers are worth more out of the box than the speaker assembled.
True. Yeah, that's depressing, isn't it?
Unless you're a YouTuber.
Maybe
and you only have one. Yeah, I get a lot of people that want to buy my finished speakers, and most of the time I'm like, I want to keep them.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, you build. If you're gonna DIY speakers, you're doing it for you. And if it's like maybe something you're going to move soon, or you have different plans for your room or something, and you need something to tie you over, just buy the thing.
And even I have an anecdote about this. I'm going to name the company, but I won't say this isn't a knock on the company, and I'm not going to say what he's got them priced at. But I'm a Facebook Marketplace addict. I run part of my business on there, and so I'm on there all the time. And there's a guy selling a pair of CSS tower speakers. Crichton, maybe. They've got like 3 or 4 woofers, big floor standing speaker, nice speaker. He's got beautiful veneer on them. All through the description, he mentions about how the crossover parts are not only, they offer tiers, better, best type of thing for crossover parts. He's a step above their best tier. He special ordered all these parts, and the poor guys had them on there for months. I know what it cost him to build them. They look like, a $20,000 showroom type speaker, and he can't get a tenth of it. And so even with a company with as much provenance and popularity as CSS, that is a proven design, you're still going to have a ton of difficulty getting your money back out of it.
The only way you're going to get your money out of, well, you probably won't get your money out of it, but the only way you're going to get them sold typically is if you know someone that's heard them and loves them and really
true.
Awesome. Oh, hey, we got a nice super chat from Evan. Thank you, Evan. We really appreciate that.
Thank you.
I'm going to give you one where I think most of the time you should build yourself, unless
Okay.
I'm going to give a big unless. I'm going to keep our super chat up there so that we can. Actually, Evan Lar is the biggest super chatter so far this month.
Oh wow.
Sweet. Cool.
He needs a crown or something. I need to start like giving out like plaques or something. That'd be kind of cool. So subwoofer.
Oh yeah.
The majority of the time, I think you should absolutely build your own subwoofer.
Agreed.
Unless
Yeah.
there's an unless here.
Let's hear it.
All right. I think you guys may even disagree with me. But there are some subwoofers that you can buy now that will use auto DSP to DSP out the nulls and everything to make a really great sounding subwoofer in your room. So the unless part is, unless you're looking at one of those subwoofers and you are not interested or don't have either a receiver or equipment to DSP your own subwoofer.
Yeah. I totally agree with that.
Yeah, I would say that's true. You're gonna pay a lot for those subs, so you're probably
You are.
in a budget where, you know, yeah, it's for somebody who can't be bothered with that kind of thing and can afford to get the DSP sub, then yeah, just do that because it'll sound really good. But if you have the DIY inclination, then did somebody just give us $100?
Zach, man, thank you, Zach.
Wow,
Zach-
dude.
We might need to give Zach a plaque.
Yeah, no kidding.
See him something nice.
Sorry, Evan, but no plaque for you.
Yeah, you lost the plaque. I'm sorry.
Wow, thank you. If you have
Thank
a
you very
question,
much.
Zach, or you want us to chat about anything, let us know. We'll try to help you out.
Yeah, and if you want to send me an email with your address, sales@toydsdiy.com, let me know. I'll send you some.
Cool.
Right on.
Thank you, sir.
But yeah, what I was saying is, for the person who isn't inclined to do that kind of stuff, then absolutely the DSP subwoofer is a very good move. But if you have a DIY incline, you are going to buy that microphone, you like to tinker and things like that, then building a sub can save a ton of money because they're so big. So the shipping costs and the driver costs and everything, and you can just do such great things with subwoofers when you DIY them. So you're absolutely right.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan. I tell everyone just DIY your own subwoofer, and I would personally, like, if you're doing it for home theater, I would personally just try to buy an AVR where you can get Dirac Live with your bass management on it. If you can do that, get the bass management on there, it's not going to be like a ton of money, but it will absolutely make a huge difference in how your subwoofers respond to your room and what the final sound quality overall is.
Yeah, I'm a huge proponent of DSP now. I've been converted several months back to the point that I don't want to live without it. But I would even say if you're just comparing apples to apples of a standard passive subwoofer with no DSP, no EQ, still DIY your own subwoofer if you're going to run it, naturally as your room would handle it. So you're just going to get so much value. Good subwoofers are so cheap. Ports are free if you're doing a slot port. So yeah, they're just air.
And usually, like, some of the reasons to not DIY wouldn't apply to subwoofers, like the whole resale thing. Subwoofers are actually one of the things that, even if you pop the driver out, you can probably sell that subwoofer driver and chuck the box. Unlike speakers,
especially if
that
it's
can
a
be lot
name
tougher.
brand.
Yeah, like if it's a Dayton Ultimax or something, most people know that. Or if it's a car audio subwoofer, maybe you can sell it to a car audio guy or something. Aesthetics, like we haven't talked about it yet, but that's a reason to not DIY if you don't have like really polished carpentry skills and it's going in your living room. Well, with the subwoofer, it's usually like going under a screen or in a corner. You can throw a blanket on top of it or something. So even if you build like crap, still build it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
True.
Like some people, if you're honest with yourself, it looks like garbage. But if it's solid, then build it because it's going to sound wicked.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with Brian Burrow too. Just
Yeah,
berate
Brian,
all your friends.
talk about speakers nonstop. I will tell you this. Funny story. I thought this was funny. I really like SVS speakers. Okay, I do. I like what SVS does. I like that they push the boundaries of what you get out of a typical traditional speaker or subwoofer. They don't just build the same thing over and over again. They try to push the boundaries of what they built last time, and they use proven methodology to do it. And I really like that about them. In fact, one of the few speakers that I would absolutely buy, like if someone said, "Hey Nick, what brand would you buy?" I would buy SVS. I like their new series especially. Now, having said that, I had a friend come over, and it was actually a friend of my son's, and it was his dad. I had just met the guy for the first time, and he heard that we had a theater upstairs, and he's like, I want to see it. And I said, okay. He's like, I have a theater too, and my wife always complains about the wires everywhere. And I was like, all right. So I played it for him. Now I have all DIY speakers. Okay. Everything I designed myself and built. And I played it for him, and he goes, oh, wow. This is so good. He said, I just have SVS at home. I'm like, I like SVS. He's like, oh, this is so much better. So that's one of the other things. If you could get someone to sit down and listen to speakers that you absolutely built and they love them, they will buy them eventually, if it's within their means and something that they need or want. But
yeah, that's honestly a really good compliment. Funny story, but SVS is a pretty good value, especially for the price point. Pretty hard to beat.
I like them. I'm actually friends with the guys at SVS as well, and I really do like them. I met them at CES one year. I have the ability to get some in to do a review on it. I might do it sometime. Okay. The High Contemplator says, hey, we're looking forward to looking at this at some other time. This is a really... Let's answer this.
Yes.
Where I live, they only sell car speakers. Can car speakers make a good bookshelf speaker?
Yep. I think so.
Yeah, it's going to be, you're going to have to be more intentional more intentional. You're going to need to be more intentional with designing the enclosure to get the bass out of if you're going with something like a car coaxial or a car mid. They're usually intended to be crossed over to like a mid bass and then a subwoofer. So a lot of them don't have a lot of low end, but yeah, I see no reason why you couldn't.
So this brings me up to, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, you got to go through all the same steps as you would any other type of speaker. You got to know its limitations and you got to use it within its proper limitations. So it might throw some hurdles at you, but it's totally doable.
Yeah.
So this goes to one of mine that I was thinking of when not to DIY. And I think this is going to be a little bit longer drawn out. I'm going to answer your question, and then I think we're also going to go more into this. But when not to DIY is when you don't know what speaker to build or what parts to use. And especially if you don't have people to help you out. So car audio speaker, for example, I have one right here. Just happen to have this on hand.
You always are just reaching back and going,
I'm literally rearranging my office. So this is just a JBL car audio speaker, right? It's got a little tweeter, a mid, and this is actually a 3-way. Most car audio speakers this size, this is a 6.5, is just a tweeter in the middle and then your woofer. A lot of them will come with a built-in crossover, an already pre-designed crossover, and I don't necessarily mean an external one. I mean one actually, soldered to the leads.
Yeah, those might be junk.
Yeah, every time I've tested those, they're never in phase. And I did a video on some decent, car audio speakers. They weren't expensive. They were like $100 a pair, which is still, for some people, a lot of money, but not like crazy expensive car audio speakers. And, I tested them and showed that they weren't in phase. So even if you could get it DSP'd in one, like you're going to have a lot of issues with these unless you can fix that phasing, which currently, like that, you can't do. You'd have to remove the crossover components in order to fix the phasing, and then maybe DSP or a new crossover altogether. So if they have built-in crossovers, don't use that. Redesign from the ground up if you're going to do that way. I haven't come across any car audio speakers that have built-in crossovers or even crossovers by themselves that aren't designed for anything more than protection.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when I said yes to that question, I definitely anticipated that this individual would be, using raw drivers, doing the measurements, all that kind of stuff. And I probably wouldn't, purchase one of those sorts of coaxial type, where the tweeter kind of floats above the woofer. I'm not a fan of that style. Look for something that's, a dedicated mid, a dedicated tweeter, and so on and so forth.
So that's considered a coaxial driver, but it's not
Concentric.
a concentric coaxial. So the time in which the sound leaves the woofer is different than when the time that leaves the tweeter. If you get a concentric coaxial, the time that they leave is physically in the same spot.
Yeah. Yeah, I would never advocate for anyone buying the car coaxials, but I will say to design a speaker from the ground up, unless you've got them on hand. But a few months back, this never materialized into a video, but I was able to, I think we may have talked about this recently privately, but I was able to get the crossover out of the built-in soldered crossover, which was a single cap off the tweeter, and design a passive crossover for it. It never materialized into a video because I didn't want to advocate that anyone go out and start this way and build a box around them, but I got some really good sound out of it, out of a $20 or $30 pair of car audio door speakers. So it's possible if that's all you've got, but I think we all kind of are in consensus that you shouldn't start there on purpose.
And I think we should also talk about when, like what types, like, because I was mentioning the fact that if you don't know what speaker to build, maybe not DIY. So I want to talk more about that, but go ahead and say what you wanted to say, Ryan.
Well, I was going to put a hypothetical out there for you guys.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
But I don't want to derail from whatever.
No,
you're
we
talking
can go
about.
back to it. That's
Okay,
fine.
all right. Hypothetical question. You guys DIY everything, or at least I assume. Like,
I just bought a brand new set of speakers.
no,
No, he didn't.
sacrilege. No,
he didn't.
I did.
You're banished.
I'm banished from the live stream. All right.
Okay, so you guys know how to do it. You have all the tools. You have shop space or whatever. You have every reason to DIY. If you had a budget of say $250, maybe even say 300, and your wife asked for a little sound bar in the living room, would you go out and get something from Best Buy for $300, or would you DIY something?
I'm going to answer this because it's a complicated question and a complicated answer. Truthfully, the right answer is probably just buy it from Best Buy, and not necessarily for the sound quality. Okay,
For the
because
looks.
maybe, and it's actually for me, it's the processing.
Oh yeah.
Because I can't buy the processing for it, right?
Oh, the Bluetooth and the yeah.
Well, I mean, maybe the Bluetooth or whatever, but like the Dolby Digital processing and all that, like I'm going to be stuck with stereo sound. I'm going to be missing a lot, even if I add up-firing speakers or stuff. Like there's a lot that you can get now in a sound bar that you can't get otherwise. Here's what I'd like to see out of a commercial soundbar. They used to do it when soundbars first came out. Yamaha had this amazing soundbar. I can't even remember what it was, but it was it was fat, right? Big and fat. It was like when like flat TVs really came out, and it had like 72 full range drivers in it, and it came
72.
yeah, and it came with a measurement microphone. It came with a measurement microphone, and then you would measure your different listening areas, just like you would with that, and it would physically move each one of those to bounce off different areas of your room, and then send different signals to each one to give you that full surround sound experience. And I have experienced it a few times, and it was really cool. Back then, I mean, I don't know what I would think of it now. Things have changed a lot, but back then it was a really neat idea. Now we're like further in, and you don't get any of that. Like you can barely change like the sound of each one of the drivers. So for that alone, that would be really the reason why I would choose to buy it. If you're looking at a sound bar, it'd be for the processing.
Okay.
Yeah,
With
I
the
mean,
camera.
I kind of alluded to this already because I was ready to roast this DIY. The most boring thing you can post on a forum to me, and this is personal, is like a Bluetooth box or a sound bar that you DIY'd. Like,
I
get
think
it
that
out
was-
of here. Throw it in the trash. You wasted your time. No, I'm kidding. Having
That's how you really feel.
having built some myself, it's such a frustrating and tedious task. And the aesthetics, you're never going to match a factory finish on a textured black matte soundbar that hides really well. If you do that yourself, I mean, even if you buy a can of Duratex, then you're out $100 or so, or $50 at a minimum if you're able to find a smaller can. So yeah, I mean, I'm definitely putting gas in the car and going down to Best Buy with no shame, and handing the sales guy $200.
Yeah.
But here's the real truth. And guys, let me know if my mic is better now. I turned up the volume a little, but if not, I can turn it up a little more. Here's the real issue that I think most of us miss with this is that most soundbars are designed as horizontal MTMs. And this goes back to the whole building the right speaker for the right thing. Horizontal MTMs, I don't care what videos you may have recently watched, horizontal MTMs are typically the worst speaker you can get for a center channel, or in this particular case, a soundbar. And I would even think that it would be even worse for a soundbar because now they're going to be interacting with each other as well. Although I've never actually measured that, just the way I'm thinking about it, especially if they're playing the same sound at the same time. So, as far as off-axis performance, that's going to be pretty bad from seat to seat to seat to seat. So if you DIY'd it, you could use things like a BMR with a couple mids where you could get like a really nice wide, even off-axis, which would be really nice. So in that regards, you could actually make it better. Or you could do a TM woofer, right? Which is one of the best ways to do it, which would be a three-way. That'd be one of the best ways to do it. So
Yeah, see,
Yeah.
I think if I did DIY it, like my choice would definitely be to buy the soundbar. In fact, I did. We have like a 58-inch TV in our living room, and I wanted it small, and I didn't want anybody looking at it.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, just useful.
don't
And the
look at my
subwoofers, like
soundbar.
I can practically put it under the couch, and it's wireless. So I would definitely buy.
But
and
the
again,
subwoofer is by far the weakest point of that system.
oh, it sucks, but I mean,
Yeah.
it goes boom.
That's just your mid bass. That's it.
Yeah. But if I did DIY it, you're absolutely right. I wouldn't do the horizontal thing. I'd probably make some like really flat, probably 2-inch deep, or the depth of the TV basically on the wall, and they'd be kind of maybe the same height as the TV on both sides. I wouldn't really have
yeah.
I wouldn't have the processing like you're talking about. They would just be stereo. But to be honest, even with that processing, like I get where you're coming from, Nick, but it's going to sound like crap anyway, so I don't really care if I have it. Like, I can make something in stereo still sound better than that soundbar with Dolby whatever, because
I guess what my point is, though, you have to include the price of whatever you're powering and processing it with.
Yeah.
oh yeah, like you would need a little AVR or something like that, or at least a top
And a
amp or something.
subwoofer,
Yeah.
and everything. Like
Oh,
you
yeah,
got
it's-
to the point where where you're no longer being able to compete with price and everything.
Totally. If you're going $300, like I can't do a very good job of it, and even like my finishing costs and stuff are gonna blow that budget out of the water if I want it to look half decent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On Nick's most recent point, let's say you've got the fundamentals of speaker design down. You've not built anything yet. You want to build a speaker. You don't have any experience with crossover design or real speaker measurements, but you have a speaker in mind, and it's a floor standing 3-way or a 4-way, and you're not going to compromise for anything else. You want the big factor. You want the dynamic range. You want the good off axis response. Jumping into a build like that head first and trying to design a 3-way or even a 4-way crossover with only a basic grasp on it and no experience under your belt could be a huge mistake and a huge waste of money. And it's not likely that once you're done and you've got the cabinet assembled, you can't simply call up your local speaker design expert friend and have him finish it for you. You know, it may be someone that you know that's in another city that's your only resource, and they're not going to be close by to help you, you know, simulate and design everything for you. So you get yourself in a lot of trouble doing that. And we see this is something I see on forums all the time. The people with big 3, 4, 5, 6-way designs with just
Yeah.
no hope of getting them finished.
You know what?
So
A three-
let's. Oh, go. No, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna cut you off.
Go for
Okay.
it.
Okay. A lot of people get confused because they think like just jumping up from a 2-way to 3-way is like, you know, a little bit more complexity. No, it's a lot more of a complexity
Triple the
jumping
work.
from.
Yeah.
It's
So
more
hard.
than it's a significant jump and increase in complexity, and then jumping from a 3-way to 4-way, significant
about
jump
it.
again.
Yeah.
So if you're going up to like a 18-way, 16-way, whatever like you're talking, like it is significantly harder because we're taking into account phasing of every single driver, how it impacts. Depending on your slope, your impact of your woofer might impact your mid-range and still your tweeter response, depending on what your mid-range is doing. I mean, there's so much that you can go wrong with building a 3-way that I would say that if this is your first build and you're not sure about it yet, then maybe that would be a time when not to build DIY, or at least not yet.
Yeah.
Get yourself more used to at least a 2-way first, or go get someone's pre-designed crossover.
What I would say to that, because Nick kind of said the person is dead set on doing a DIY and they're dead set on the full-blown 3-way thing.
You mean
I would
Cameron?
say, oh, sorry, Cameron. Yes, it was
It's okay.
Cameron. I would say to that person, build the 2-way part of the 3-way you want, because the
Not
hard
first.
part of it, hard part of a 3-way is the crossover in and around 500-600 hertz, whatever it is, because it's really hard to get measurements in that zone. People think they're getting measurements at 500 hertz, and they're not. It's just like
Yeah.
flattened crap, and so it's hard to get the measurements. The passive crossover parts get really expensive and stuff like that. So build the 2-way part, do it sealed, and then once you got that figured out, build a woofer section that you want separate, like a subwoofer. Build them so they integrate or whatever, and do it with active crossovers, just like you would do with a subwoofer, and use active crossover at like 150 or 200 hertz, and then now you've got an active 3-way, like passive active hybrid, and the crossover is low enough where phase and all that kind of stuff and getting good measurements, you can probably fudge it. You can probably just measure in your room and make sure everything's cooperating.
Yeah. Really good point. Nick, did you have something? I want to answer a question after you.
I
go
want to
ahead.
answer this question real quick. He said, "Hey, I'm tempted to add delay via DSP to those kinds of 2-way coax car speakers." So let me clarify something real quick. If you're talking about something like this, just a 3-way, but still we'll just assume it was a 2-way, and it has a crossover already built in, you can't add delay because you'd be adding delay to the entire system.
Right. Yeah, you need access to both sets of terminals.
Right. Unless
Oh, you don't have
No.
oh,
the crossover's built in. Right.
So you got
So,
2 terminals and
Yeah.
okay.
Unless you can have access to both terminals, you can't do that.
Yeah.
So that's where I try to tell a lot of car audio, like I get in trouble with the car audio community. I got in trouble with that video because they're like, you don't know what you're talking about, because they're like, you can just DSP it to fix it, and I'm like, yes,
No.
if you have access to each individual driver, you can do that. But if you don't have access to each individual driver, which you don't, then you can't get that phase correct.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. Is there any way to open those up and
Yeah, as
desolder
I
mean,
everything?
As I
There might
explained,
be,
done
but
before.
but most people when they say this comment that I've run into is they want to take, just the individual leads.
Yeah. And add
go- and
delay
that-
or something.
Yeah, and you can't do that because you add delay to the entire system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally right.
Zeltergeist, I'm going to take I can't see your entire question anymore, but just to answer it, I think you're asking about just doubling up on the drivers. It's not going to work out if you keep the same crossover. You're going to have to do a redesign because your impedance and things like that's going to change. Okay, let's see what he said. Can the Pit Vipers be scaled up with dual 12-inch, also dual 5 1/4 and MTM per cabinet, doubling sub volume and daisy chaining crossovers at the input? Same driver spacing, mirrored Newport, but same spec. Yeah, see, if you do an MTM, your tweeter spacing is going to be different because you're sticking another woofer in there. You're changing a lot of things, and that design has kind of all been crystallized. So it's unfortunately not quite that simple. I think that would benefit the design to do an MTM with your tweeter and things like that.
Yeah, you can't. There's a lot going on there, but you can't do that.
Yeah, it would be a mess. But it would be cool to see the Pit Vipers done with an MTM. And I'm sorry, I said you'd change your tweeter spacing, but you wouldn't actually with an MTM. But still, you're changing your mids impedance and things like that, your woofers impedance. And I can't remember, but those 12-inch Dayton drivers are dual voice cool to begin with, so I don't even know what your impedance would be off the top of my head. But
Is the Pit
Yes.
Viper a speaker you designed, Cameron?
no, that's a Paul Carmody design.
Oh.
It's on his website for free, the plans. I gave it to my father-in-law, so I don't even have them around the house anymore, but I liked them. They're really cool monkey coffins.
So I want to talk about this too, because I think there's some confusion about this. And Ryan, I know you know the answer to this, so I'm going to ask you it. I'm sure you know the answer too, Cameron, but I'm just
Maybe not.
So this guy recently emailed me, and this is not to pick on him because I think it was an excellent question. He said, "Hey, look, I want to redesign your audience 212s, but currently the 212s wouldn't fit where I want to. Can I replace the two 12-inch woofers with two 6-inch woofers on either side?" And now we already went over the details of why you can't do that to a certain degree, but I want to talk about volume displacement a little. As far as 2 6s don't equal 112, do they?
No.
Nope.
How many 6s would you need to have?
Probably 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
4.
If you look at go back to
Per
your
side.
grade 8 math. Go back to your grade 8 math and remember the area of a circle is pi times the radius to the power of 2. And it's that exponent, that power of 2, that really kills that kind of easy doubling math. And basically, it's kind of like when you go to your favorite pizza joint and the 14-inch pizza costs twice or 3 times as much as the 12-inch pizza. It's because when you increase radius, you're getting a lot more surface area. So that's what it boils down to.
Yeah, and so a lot of people will, it's just because we think of math like 6 + 6 = 12, so therefore 2 6-inches equal a 12-inch woofer, and that's just not the case. So I'm glad that you explained that. And so that's kind of one of the points that I would like to get into is that sometimes when we're talking about that volume displacement, it's not as simple as just doubling drivers up. Same with passive radiator, we've talked about that before as well. It's not necessarily doubling things, it's getting the right amount of volume displacement to be the same. Now either way, I wouldn't have done what that guy was saying. On this particular driver, you asked about it, you actually can find some of these on it, so you could probably desolder them and but your whole point is you're removing the entire crossover circuit though by doing this.
That's how I would do it. If I had a pair of speakers like that, personally,
Oh, agreed.
I would just pull all the crossover crap off of there and start fresh. Yeah.
Yeah, but if you were going to try to make them out of those, I have no problem. Repurpose everything you want. And if you like the sound of those like they are, then just use them that way. Just create a big box or even do open baffle with them.
Yeah, what I'll tell you subjectively is I measured those cheap JVCs before I took the crossover and redesigned another crossover. I measured and listened to them, and then I got an almost perfectly linear response out of them with the passive crossover. And the sound quality wasn't that big of an improvement.
Yeah, no.
He's right though. Plumbers,
yeah, like a 2-inch line
Whoa.
is not the same as two 2-inch lines is not the same as a 4-inch line coming out of your house. It doesn't work like that at all. Just try it.
Nice if it was. Or anyone that's run any type of culvert.
Yeah.
Anything like
exactly.
that. Yeah.
Going up from a 10-inch to a 12-inch culvert, it's like massive difference.
Yeah, 4 inches to equal an 8-inch typically. I mean, we're making typical assumptions, but yeah, it's It's a lot. So
Ryan touched on this. I think he's touched on it a couple of times. But if let's say you've got basic woodworking skills, but a very skilled builder once told me you need to have at least one finish in your toolkit. Like perfect one way of finishing your projects, meaning whether you're using veneer and lacquer or polyurethane, or you're a painter. Ryan, we saw it's a really good result used for mica recently. I thought that looked beautiful. It was super simple. You've got to have something up your sleeve that you can finish your DIY project with, especially if you're married. You've got a nice home that it's going in. It's not going in the garage. Be prepared at the end of the project to make it look good, because not everyone might appreciate the sound quality as much as you do, I've learned. So they need to look presentable.
Yeah, if you're a bachelor and you really don't care, go for it. But if you're not, if you got a wife or whatever, you're right. You probably need to be able to finish those things pretty good.
Yeah.
I certainly started out with some crappy looking speakers, and my wife put up with them, but I wasn't proud of them. You know, I liked the sound of them, but it was part of the learning process, right? And I think I'm better now.
Yeah.
I'm going to give another one that I think, I'm curious what you guys would say. I wouldn't DIY if a friend of me asked me to build a set of speakers for them, but had never heard them before.
Yeah, I've been down that path, and I kind of regret it. Yeah. Like there's been a couple times where someone's like, "Hey, can you do these speakers for me?" And it's like, I really want to try a driver or something, and they're going to pay for it, and I get to try it out. So I go for it, and you know, I don't need some speakers, and they're going to flip the bill, and I get to play or whatever. And then at the end of it, I'm like, oh gosh, you know, like that was a lot of work, and I don't know if they actually like them. And that resale thing, like they've got this thing in their living room that they can never sell. And I've just never really felt good about that afterwards.
Yeah, I agree. And the truth of the matter is, I don't know how many times that we've talked about this, but a lot of people don't know what good sound is. Like, they haven't heard it. And so that can be an issue as well. And especially if it's going to be a new design, one that you've never designed before or something new, things can come up during that design process that you didn't think about ahead of time. Or they're just not happy with the way it sounds, especially if they never heard it before. And that just happens sometimes. And so or they don't like the finish or something.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I like to just build the speakers the way I like to build them, and build them for me or whatever. And if someone likes them afterwards and then wants to buy that pair, fine. But most of the time, I'm not one into the other way.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to do a hard decline, or a polite decline anyway. If a friend of mine asks me to build, anyone offers money or just, you know, the drivers or the experience, it's so much work building a pair of speakers.
DIY is definitely for yourself.
Yeah. It really has to be.
Well, I would say, or like if you have some that you've already built and they've heard them, or you know in the design already that they're really good, then that's different, right? Like I know some designs that I built that are really good, and I know that people would like them. Those ones I would absolutely build for someone else if they wanted them, especially since I have a CNC. It makes things a little bit faster and easier. But if they want me to design one from scratch, that's where I I don't know.
Yeah, that'd be tough.
It is. I like Mr. Green's comment. We need a 9 or 12 channel amp for DSP, the ultimate stereo setup. I agree. I would really appreciate a product like that.
We have one.
I got a 6 channel. Well, yeah, it is 9 channels.
It's more than 9.
Well,
And it has DSP on each channel.
6 active channels, 6 powered active channels. I say active; they're all active technically.
What is it? 4? Is it 4 or it's 6?
Yeah, it's 6 powered channel, 6 powered
6
channels,
passive.
and then you've got RCA, stereo RCAs,
stereo fiber optic.
Yeah, fiber optic and coax. Look at the Akoustis AC650. You have a ton of flexibility.
So you have 3 analog inputs and 6 powered outputs.
No.
So they're analog outputs,
You
looking at my-
have. Hold on. No, we're talking about outputs to go to amplifiers. So here, let's pull it up.
I
So
was doing that. Go ahead.
Well, Mr. Green
No,
is saying a 9-channel amp. So I assume he means like.
but this would work as that. Just let's explain it.
Okay, bring it up, because I want this product.
I'm always excited to talk about
So
it.
look, I this is the one that I'm going to be using. So this is the Akustos AC650. It has 6 powered channels, okay? 1 through 6 powered. Now, I did a whole video on this. If you want to look at it, it's actually really cool.
Why does it
You
look like
actually
it's
did-
from the 70s?
Well, I
What?
don't know. It's actually really nice. Now look, so it has 6 powered, but then it has other outputs that you can run to other amplifiers. So 9 and 10 are analog RCA outs. Optical are 7 and 8. So this is 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So 10 outputs. I was thinking it had 12. Now inputs, USB DAC, coaxial in, optical in. Those are
Bluetooth.
your...
Um,
Yeah, I didn't like the fact they didn't have stereo in, but he did say you can get a
Well, I
converter.
want
That was one
3
thing.
in. I want
Why
3 in. I
3?
want LCR.
well,
Well,
so
yeah.
You go,
So you know what? I actually talked to him. I know the owner of this. We talk a lot, and I actually said that to him. I was like, "Look, if you have this many outputs, right, then you should have the option of 3 inputs." And I said the same thing, like 3 or 4 or 5 inputs, because people are going to want to use this for surround sound. Like this would be an amazing surround sound if you could do that. But yeah, you're right. But he said Mr. Green was talking about stereo setup. That's why I brought it up.
yeah.
Yeah, okay, ultimate front stereo setup. Okay, fair enough. That is what he said. But I want a 9-channel amp with fully built-in DSP, one box, where I put 3 ins and I get 9 channels out of powered DSP controlled output. That would be awesome for me. I bought the Dayton DSP 408 because it has 4 in and 8 out. Because then I can do LCR subs,
The 408.
4
Yeah.
in, and then on the out, I've got 6 out. It's not powered, but I've got 6 analog outputs for the high pass, low pass on all 3 channels, and then I have 2 outputs that I can DSP sub. One little tiny box.
Colby
So
asks,
this is the one part I'm not as big of a fan of. It does have EQ, has channels out, has all that. Currently, and I don't know if they're ever going to add it, it does not do FIR or IIR filters, which is the one big downside. Now, you can still adjust delay, you can add EQ, you can change the Q, you can change any frequency you want.
yeah, and they've done a ton of updates. They've gotten out like graphical EQs, so it's parametric EQ, but yeah, you can go from 0.1 Q to like up to a 10. So you can go really wide, really narrow, up to like 10 dB in either direction. So you can cut or boost with it. And there's 15 bands of EQ for every single one of those channels that are out. So
Personally, I think
It's
that's
extremely
all a
powerful.
person really needs.
it's so much. I can't imagine that it's not going to fit your needs. As long as the power ratings are adequate for you, I can't really imagine what your drivers are doing that the Akustos can't handle. So
Yeah, I mean,
you
so
hear me okay?
my
you
Yeah,
were cutting in and out.
you
a
were
little.
cutting in and out.
Oh, sorry.
We were making it up. Yeah, your audio went baloney for a little bit, but it's
Yeah.
okay.
Sorry, glorified.
So I wish I had mine up here. That's the amplifier that I'll be doing the Hi-Fi 3.1A with, and I'll be using that for DSP, which I think is the better route to do that because there's a lot of problems with that. Those drivers are so good, but the original crossover in that was not, for me at
Yeah.
least. It was rough for me.
Which
The drivers in that kit are really good quality drivers
it's,
too.
It's the Hi-Fi 3.1A kit. It's a completely DIY kit, all using Hi-Fi drivers. It uses ribbon tweeter, a really nice mid-range, and that woofer surprisingly gets really good bass.
I use that in my KEF clones, my DSP, which I use the Akustos to build, or to power rather. And man, that woofer digs deep for a little 6-inch woofer.
It
It's
really
pretty.
does. It's impressive.
Yeah, for music, it's perfectly adequate. I do not feel the need to turn on a subwoofer when I'm rocking those.
Now I know I did a build. You did a build with those as well, didn't you, Cameron?
Yeah.
On
So
the
I mean,
account, yeah.
I've done that kit build, and then I've also used the woofer in a build, and I've used the dome in a build. 2 different builds, so 3 different builds in total. I haven't used the ribbon because I've not done another 3-way, but I do want to use that ribbon at some point when I get around to another 3-way.
Yeah, if you look at so I showed the measurements on my build, Ryan. If you want to see the measurements, they're rough. I'm not gonna say it any other way. They're rough.
Sure.
Yeah.
And
it is. Yeah.
the measurements are rough, but the drivers are great. So before we end, I want to talk about something. We talked about how most people shouldn't start with like a 3-way speaker,
Yeah.
especially if you're going to start DIYing. So what are we going to do? We're going to do a 3-way speaker build off.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing this up.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So we are going to try to bring all of them to the speaker design competition. Chiare, which is a brand of BNC Group. So they're part of BNC Group. If you guys see that, it's not Sierra or what, it's Chiare. Go ahead and say it with me. Chiare.
Come on, Ryan.
You're French. You're basically French. You're from Canada. You should be like really good at this. It's Italy, actually, Italian.
Yeah, it's Italian. I didn't know how to say it up until an hour ago.
So this is the tweeter that we're using. I think it's a 3/4 inch. Is it 3/4 inch or half? It's pretty small. It's the HT200. They also sent us each the HM500, which looks very similar to that Hi-Fi Swans mid-range. It's a fabric dome mid-range.
I'm excited to use a dome mid again. It's been a while.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I have a love-hate with them, but I actually like them.
I've used them once in a 3-way design.
You know, I don't know that I've used. Is this a sealed mid-range?
Yeah.
Anyone? I haven't looked up the specs of any of these drivers yet.
I wouldn't know, because just take note, guys. Right now, these guys are going to have at least a week head start on me because I haven't got my drivers in, and both of them have. They're already.
Oh my
in
gosh!
planning phase.
He got
So they
his
got a
in
major
3 days
advantage on
ago.
me. No,
He got his in
they
3
still haven't
days.
showed up. So
He's gonna get it tomorrow, and
We
are
have
not,
a tight timeline to
Let me
get it
see.
to that event.
We do.
Yeah,
And I'm
and
not
not in-
going, so I got to mail them.
not an art.
No, I'll try to meet you halfway somewhere if you want. Pick them up
Yeah,
for
we'll
me.
have to.
These are the 10-inch woofer, and this is the HW25 251N.
I'm excited for that woofer. I'm excited for the mid and the woofer. But I think that woofer is gonna be surprising.
I'm only excited about the tweeter,
I'm excited
Okay.
about all of it.
just because I want to.
I do want to see what that woofer can do.
So you should, if you're going to go to the speaker design competition, hopefully you'll be able to hear all of them. We should be able to bring them. I won't be able to enter mine, at least in the competition. I just don't have time for that, but I'll bring them there for people to listen to. There's a room that you can just listen to speakers in. And then Chiare is and BNC Group is going to listen to them, and we're going to try to do a live stream while we're there, where they can announce the winner and tell us what they thought about each one of them. So if you guys are interested in that, we'll get it. The design will be based off of looks and sound, like every speaker. Looks and sound.
Looks too?
Yeah. What?
That's honestly a tall order. I was thinking about leaving. mine
Okay, so
there.
are you trying to say right now that
I
you
lose.
married your wife only because of her personality?
Oh, come on. I am super shallow. She is hot.
Says it live on air?
But I do not have time to build a good-looking speaker.
Yeah, that's a tall order.
You've got a month and a half at least. You got
Jeez,
almost
man.
2 months.
I have a full-time job.
Yeah, we're gonna do it
can
weighted.
do it.
Aesthetics
So
are
wait,
gonna get partial.
A month and a half. Let's just say. So what is that? 6. Let's say 6 weeks. You got at least 12 days on the weekends. At least.
Yeah,
12
my weekends are all mine.
Yes,
by the-
exactly.
Nick's got crossover parts in like wholesale on his wall over there. I'm gonna be waiting 2 weeks on those parts to show up. He's over there prototyping. See that? He's got like a Parts Express mini store on his wall.
Yeah,
not
I
true.
left my box of crossover goodies at my last place. I gotta
I'm
either
gonna
get
be
them
honest with
back
you. Actually,
or
most of those are empty. No, a lot of them are. No, I'm serious. Because for a long time, Parts Express was out of like all the ones that I used most of, and so, and I never got them back. I should start ordering some back in because I usually keep like at least 2 of each inductor that I usually use in there, and 2 of each capacitor. I usually leave them on stock, and when they go low, I replace them. But I have not replaced them, so there is a lot that are low or gone or non-existent.
Okay. Okay.
good. Good.
So, yep. So, look forward to that, guys. If you have any ideas or if you've used these drivers, you know where they play really well at, make sure to tell me and don't tell them.
Yeah, email me.
Yeah, you know what? That's true. Nick needs the help.
That's fair.
I'll take the help. I'm not too proud to beg. I am too proud to beg.
That makes 3 of us.
So we are done with the show, obviously, but we're going to go ahead and talk about what we have coming up on our channels because I know that you guys have some really cool stuff, and so I'm excited to hear what it is.
Go ahead, Cameron.
I talked about this last week. I've got a budget build that I'm waiting on parts for. It's going to be a budget 2-way home theater based kind of design, big woofer, a nice sized horn, decent form factor, really good price point. Right now they're looking like they're about $150. Totally finished crossover parts, damping material, everything. Maybe a little less when I do the real math, but right in that sweet spot. So I'm really excited to see how they sound. I'm waiting on crossover parts so I can report back on the actual sound quality pretty soon. So I'm excited about that.
Cool. I
Not you, Ryan.
am waiting to finish my DSP 408 video. I've pretty much measured and satisfied myself with what it can do. I've just had a really busy week, so I got to put the finishing touches on that and then get it published. And then I'm going to be going right into this Chiare build.
Chiare. See, you said it perfectly. Look at that. Chiare. Now we know why your wife married you, for your linguistic. Linguistics. So I have a couple talking heads coming up, which are kind of cool. I got one on crossovers, just explaining how crossovers work and what they do. And then I have one that goes into some of a speaker design, a specific speaker design. I'm not going to say which one right now, but it talks about why it's a really good design. And it's my understanding now that the design of it used to be patented, obviously, but I believe the patent has expired on it. So you can actually start building them without having to worry about, getting sued, I believe. I'm not a lawyer, so check into that yourself. check into the actual patent yourself. But I believe it has expired. So that's it. And I have DATS LA and the Omni mic, which I want to get out as well. So
cool. Yeah, I'm excited for those still.
Yeah, the DATS LA I'm really envious of. I might buy one of those.
I'm really excited about more than the DATS LA. I'm really excited about the Omni mic because of what all it can do. And if the Omni mic is as good as I think it is, or should be, then I might start testing some tweeters as they come in, or mid ranges as they come in, and start getting you some more important details, such as, if we're getting ringing, or what frequencies does it play best at? What frequencies does it not? What frequencies are you going to expect compression at, etc. Depending if it's something that you're going to be using for something like home theater or something.
Cool. Yeah. More data never hurts.
All right, guys.